My name is Gautam and I produce under the name Decoder, and I've been DJing for around 3 or 4 years now and producing for around 6 or 7, and tonight I'm playing with Beatworx in Bangalore. I feel great. It's super exciting to come to India specifically and play because I've heard nothing but good things about the scene here, and it feels very communal and people support each other and whatnot, and so I'm really excited to see how that turns out. And tonight I'm planning to go just full minimal, trippy, like typical Decoder stuff that I would play in a set, just because it's always nice when you go to a new scene just to do your thing and then see what happens and then accordingly make a judgment call. But yeah, I'm super excited. Electronic music has kind of been a part of my childhood because my mom, she grew up listening to it, and so naturally she would play it a lot at home as I was growing up, and she played a lot of the early like synth pop, like 80s kind of music, and it kind of just stuck with me. And I was also very nerdy as a kid, like into video games and a lot of this electronic inspired stuff, and once I got into like making music, it kind of just clicked. Like everything about techno just kind of made sense once I found it. It had like the rhythm and the beats that I've always liked, but it had this kind of forward-thinking, like futuristic aspect that kind of always appealed to me. And especially with the sci-fi, like minimalistic style of techno, it kind of brings like a kind of new dimension to not only music, but just the way you perceive it in your mind. And that's something that's kind of always just stuck out to me. Lately, a lot of Hinduism and a lot of concepts from that and a lot of the mythology that comes with it has been a big inspiration for my music, because for the longest time I was really inspired by sci-fi and, you know, kind of world building these like futuristic dystopian landscapes, and it's super cool, but there's something about tapping into like my roots and like Hindu like mythology, because my parents have told me tons of stories. It's kind of refreshing and kind of allowing me to take a new approach and come up with some newer ideas. And I think ultimately that plus sci-fi, I think if I can find a way to find a connection between all of that and apply it to my music somehow, that would be the biggest goal. And so at the moment I'm just trying to find inspiration from wherever I can and see what comes out. Yeah. My head is very disorganized, and I never really had like a proper way to approach preparing for DJing, and lately I've found the best way to work is just have a set of tracks and just go in with that and see what happens. And so there's no like set lists or playlists for each gig. It's just a collection of tracks that I like, and I'll see what works in the moment. And any pre-rituals before gigs, other than eating a good meal, not much. I try to keep my head clear before DJing because I think a lot of people can find themselves overthinking, and that can lead to maybe not performing the best you can. But I think if you can approach DJing with a clear mind, it's really good for your focus, and you can feel the energy of the crowd and kind of read like what you should be playing a bit better. There definitely is sometimes a disconnect between the DJ and the audience, and I think one, it's a great learning experience for DJs, because if you're a DJ and every time you play the crowd is always completely receptive and everything's good, then I truly believe the quality of your sets may go down, because you're not getting that feedback loop of like, okay, like what is happening? You're just gonna play whatever, which in an ideal world would be nice, but I think it's a good learning experience, especially with empathy. I think empathy is needed for DJing, because you really need to see like who is reacting well to what and accordingly play some of that in your set. And obviously there's no hard rules, because also as an artist you want to showcase your sound, and so there is a bit of that give and take. But ultimately I think that if you have an audience and they're being not that receptive, you should just change it up in a way that you like, and something that can still represent your style in a good way. And I think ultimately people will find that receptive in the first place. I started my label Codec during the pandemic just because, one, as a producer, you obviously don't really go out much if you're producing, And also, living in Dallas, it was very isolated for me for the type of music that I liked. And I kind of just wanted a platform to put out my music and my friends' music, just because I thought it would be cool and it would be a nice learning experience for me to figure out how all this management stuff works and a nice way to connect with other artists. And so I think that journey has been great because I've met a lot of amazing, very talented people just through the label, and also I hope to have pushed their growth in some way in working together. And for the future, I'm starting a new vinyl label called Codec Records with my friend Jay York, and it's going to be vinyl releases only and very stripped back, minimal aesthetic, but the whole goal was that we just wanted a cool label with cool releases with our friends to do vinyl, because we feel like there can never be enough of that. There is some sort of cultural aspect that techno brings even outside of the music, because I haven't been traveling much very long, but of all the places I've went, traveling can be a scary thing because you're always going somewhere unknown, you may not know anyone, but I've always found a home among techno and everyone in the community, because there's something about it that I think draws a certain mind, and people with that mindset, I think there's a very communal aspect about it, and everywhere I've traveled to play a gig or meet up with friends who also produce, it's felt a lot like home.